The Vietnam War was a pivotal moment in world history, a conflict that changed the course of the 20th century and has a lasting impact on the world today. It was the war that pitted the power of the United States against the communist forces of North Vietnam, using the most advanced weapons of the time, and risking the lives of millions of soldiers and civilians. But beyond battlefields and politics, the Vietnam War was a story of human struggle, courage and sacrifice, triumph and tragedy. It left a deep and lasting mark on the world and was a story we will always remember. The Vietnam War was a long and bloody conflict that lasted from 1954 to 1975. It was fought between the communist forces of North Vietnam, backed by the Soviet Union and China, and the non-communist forces of South Vietnam, backed by the United States and other Western powers. The war stems from the decolonization of Asia after World War II and the spread of communism in the region. Vietnam was a French colony for a long time, but after World War II, the Vietnamese people began to demand independence. In 1954, after a long and bloody war, Vietnam was split between her two nations, Communist North Vietnam and non-communist South Vietnam. The United States became embroiled in the conflict in the early 1960s when President John F. Kennedy sent military advisors to South Vietnam to help fight communist forces in North Vietnam. President Kennedy was assassinated in 1963, and his successor, President Lyndon B. Johnson, significantly escalated his involvement in America's wars. By 1965, the United States had more than 500,000 of her troops stationed in Vietnam. The war was fought on multiple fronts, with both sides employing different tactics and strategies. The United States relied heavily on air power and artillery to try to defeat the communist forces, while North Vietnam used guerrilla tactics and fought from hidden base camps in the jungle. The fighting was brutal and fierce, with heavy casualties on both sides. The Vietnam War had a huge impact on America and the world. This was the first war to be televised, and many people in the United States watched the battle on their television screens. The war also sparked many anti-war protests and civil unrest in the United States, with many arguing that the war was pointless and that the United States should not be involved in Vietnam. The war also had a major impact on Vietnam itself as the country was ravaged by fighting. In 1975, North Vietnam took control of the entire country and Vietnam was reunified under communist rule. The aftermath of the war in Vietnam was marked by widespread poverty and political oppression as the country struggled to rebuild and recover from the ravages of the conflict. Overall, the Vietnam War was a complex and tragic conflict with far-reaching consequences for the United States, Vietnam, and the rest of the world. It was remembered as a painful and divisive chapter in American history, and its legacy continues to shape international relations and political debates to this day.